Folks, it's the week of miracles, and we're going to talk about some of the most extraordinary things. We have a man who died. He had a massive coronary. He died. The doctor had called the code. He was dead. His doctor is here, and the man is here on this program today to tell you about it. Dramatic, extraordinary.
Amazing stories, and this all on the heels of our Heaven and Hell series that we did a couple of weeks ago.
Hey, welcome back. You've been over to the Ukraine?
I've been in Ukraine and had a wonderful trip. Went north, south, east, west. We were all over the country.
They love you in Ukraine?
Well, they love the 700 Club in Ukraine, Pat. We have many, many friends there, and it was so exciting to see that.
Yes. We'll hear more about it later. Well, folks, the European Union is having a serious problem with Greece. They're yet to approve a second bailout, and the financial fiasco has big ramifications, not only in Greece and Europe, but across the globe.
Well, some are saying that Greece may have to say goodbye to the euro just to fix its deep economic problems. Dale Hurd has more from Germany.
While EU leaders try to agree on another plan to save Greece from collapse, the biggest skeptics are probably on the streets of Athens. What has happened to Greece is called a recession, but looks more like a depression. The Greek economy will shrink at least 5% this year. Industrial production, which fell 20% last year, is still dropping like a rock. Real unemployment is 20%, but for young people it's 42%. And the previous International Monetary Fund bailout of Greece has proven to be money down the drain. This Greek says it's like receiving a jolt of electroshock therapy. The country is revived briefly through the help of the IMF, but the truth is that Greece is already dead. Greece's debt is so high that even if politicians do defy protesters and make the required cuts in spending, the government will still owe 3 times the entire national income. For the wealthiest EU nations like Germany, who have had to give Greece money, it looks increasingly hopeless. The Germans look at the mess in Greece and know that they don't want to pay the bill for it anymore. And there is increasing talk that it may be time for Greece to leave the Eurozone.
I think this would be the best for the Greek people.
Klaus-Peter Wilsch sits on the budget committee in Germany's Bundestag, or parliament, and says the one-size-fits-all nature of a strong euro is preventing Greece from recovering.
If they would have their own currency, they could devaluate.
Another plan, Wilsch says, would be the creation of 2 eurozones, one for rich members like France and Germany, and one for poorer members like Greece, Spain, and Portugal. And it's not at all certain the next Greek bailout will work. The euro currency head has warned it could backfire, with lenders raising the cost of borrowing for the other struggling EU nations like Spain, where the protests are just getting started. And it could send the EU into an even deeper crisis. Dale Hurd, CBN News, near Frankfurt, Germany.
There was a bank in Austria called the Kreditanstalt. It went under, and that triggered the greatest depression we had seen in that century. You never can tell what will trigger it, and this could be the trigger. But it's time. Greece is just gone, and they might as well devalue. They might as well default. They might as well default on their debt, say we're not going to pay it. But right now, Greek debt, I think they're paying something like 18% on Greek bonds. And just imagine what it would be like if the United States, that owes about how much of it, it's so much I forget right now, the trillions of dollars, but if you added up that and started charging 15% interest on it.
Wow. What's the answer for them, though? They've
just got to start all over again and get their house
with their own currency?
With their own currency, and see if they can't rebuild. But they've got to, I mean, what do they sell olives, and they sell, olive oil, and they sell cork, and they sell fabrics and textiles, and all sorts of things they can sell for currency, and they've just got to start getting them back together. I mean, after all, that was the first great democracy, and I don't know what's happened to them, but that's what welfare states will do. That's what all this government spending will do. And ladies and gentlemen, here in America, if the people who run this country don't get their act together, that is the canary in the coal mine. It's given us a warning, but we better take it, and I don't think anybody in Washington really is heeding. Well, Wendy Griffith has more of our top stories from the CBN newsroom. On this day, we're going to talk about the supernatural. Wendy.
Sounds very exciting. Thanks, Pat. But first, it's now been more than 90 days since America's military joined the NATO-led mission to remove Muammar Gaddafi from Libya. House Republicans say the president must now get authorization from Congress under the War Powers Resolution. But there are no signs he plans to do it. The White House says it doesn't have to because there are no ground forces in Libya, but even some leading Democrats disagree.
I think that the War Powers Act and Constitution make it clear that hostilities by remote control are still hostilities.
I was in the White House and the NSC staff not long after the War Powers Act was passed, and I believe that President Obama has complied with the law, consistent in a manner with virtually all of his predecessors. I don't think he's breaking any new ground here.
Republican Senator John McCain is expected to offer a resolution in support of that mission, but others have suggested cutting funding. Defense Secretary Robert Gates is calling for the U.S. military to keep up the pressure in Afghanistan. That comes as others in Washington are calling for the U.S. to end our involvement there. Afghan President Hamid Karzai says American forces risk becoming occupiers if airstrikes in the region continue. But Gates says the U.S. is trying to end the war through negotiations with the Taliban. He says those talks will only succeed if U.S. pressure on the Taliban continues. Pat, what do you think?
Well, the Taliban are going to wait us out. They've made it clear that we're going to leave, and they will wait. They're very patient. They'll just say we'll more or less cease hostilities. We'll stand down and let the Americans walk out. Then we'll go after them, and hopefully they'll capture a lot of our heavy equipment as we phase out. They want to pick up the equipment, then they'll use it to fight. But Karzai is a loser. I think the administration is corrupt. His election was corrupt. His family is corrupt. And the opium trade is appalling. We could have shut down those poppies in a matter of a few weeks in a surgical airstrike or whatever you do with the insecticides and the defoliants that they use to kill plants. We could have done that very easily.
Seems like that should have been a given. Why didn't it happen?
Well, they kept saying, well, the Afghans need the opium to supply their economy. Well, that's a pact with the devil. And these are a bunch of corrupt warlords over there, and we're in bed with them, and they ask for these things, and we're giving them to it now, and we're doing it on our dollar and on the lives of our brave men and women. Wendy?
Pat, it was a busy weekend for Republican presidential contenders. Many were looking for an edge in this wide-open race. Congressman Ron Paul of Texas won the presidential straw poll at the Republican Leadership Conference. Former Utah Governor Jon Huntsman came in second. At the same conference, Texas Governor Rick Perry started sounding more and more like a potential candidate.
You see, I've got more confidence in America's energy and character. I totally believe it's time to reconnect with the greatest attributes of our nation, to regain that resilient spirit and recapture that love of freedom, remembering its true price.
Meanwhile, Mitt Romney refused to sign a pro-life pledge put out by the Susan B. Anthony Group. He says the pledge was broad and could have unintended implications. Michelle Bachmann called Romney's decision not to sign the pro-life pledge distressing. It's down to the wire for New York's gay marriage legislation. Governor Andrew Cuomo has been pressuring lawmakers to legalize same-sex marriage. But Christians are concerned the measure infringes on religious freedoms. Charlene Israel has that story.
With the clock ticking away, opponents and supporters are standing their ground over whether same-sex marriage should be legalized in the state.
Whose business is it, and why does anybody get hurt? That's what I don't understand.
Currently, 31 senators, including 2 Republicans, are in favor of the same-sex bill. 3 Republican senators remain undecided. One reason a vote has been stalled, Republicans want solid legal protections for religious institutions that believe gay marriage is wrong.
We want to make sure that there are provisions in there to protect against these unintended consequences.
Specifically, under the bill, clergy have the right to decide whether they want to perform same-sex marriages.
What we don't want to see is our religious organizations or individuals being opened up to litigation because of a new set and a new era of law.
Not a civil rights issue. I disagree with that. It has to be something that's immutable. One of the conditions for it to be a civil rights issue. This lifestyle is not immutable.
On Sunday at St. Patrick's Cathedral, Archbishop Timothy Dolan continued his campaign against the legislation.
Marriage is already defined as between the lifelong union between one man and one woman in love, bringing about children. And I don't think it's political in just to stand up and say, let's not tamper with that.
Charlene Israel, CBN News.
22-year-old Rory McIlroy has become the youngest golfer to win the U.S. Open since 1923. The Northern Ireland native shattered tournament records, finishing at 16 under par. McIlroy celebrated his win with his dad Sunday. His father worked 3 jobs to help his son pursue his passion for golf. As soon as McIlroy took his last shot, he went straight up to his dad, gave him a big hug, and told him, "Happy Father's Day." What a great gift, Pat.
What a great player. 22 years old. He's got a natural swing, and everybody's been looking for Tiger Woods. Tiger set some marvelous records, but his body just wouldn't stand it any longer. Imagine when you're 35 years old, your body gives out, you can't play golf anymore. But he's got problems with his ankles and his knees, and I don't know what all else.
Well, it was really inspiring to see such a young man do so well, wasn't it?
Well, coming back from the Masters, where he blew up in the Masters, and that would be hanging over his head, instead of cursing and doing all the stuff that Tiger did, he just said, "I hope this builds character." I mean, everybody just loved him for it.
Yes, they really did. It was so wonderful to see him with his dad at the end of the game.
Well, anyhow, we got a new champion, and I think he's going to, if he keeps it up, he's going to knock them all dead. Every time he shows up, he's going to outplay anybody out there. He hits long drives. He's got a natural swing.
Makes you want to play golf.
Not me. He's
Makes me want to play golf.
too good. All right.
Well, not with him.
The rash of wildfires blazing throughout the West shows no sign of dying out. So far this year, the flames consumed 1.2 million acres. That's more than in all of 2010. 3 dozen wildfires are burning in 10 states. Hardest hit are Texas and Arizona, where severe drought is feeding the fire.
We need rain. We really need rain.
Our biggest challenge right now is drought conditions, extreme fire danger.
In Arizona, more than 1,000 firefighters are taking on 2 huge blazes. Those fires have consumed at least 44 homes and forced thousands to evacuate. In Texas, the fires closed I-45, the major highway between Dallas and Houston. Officials evacuated about 200 families from the town of Midland. CBN World Reach in Thailand held their 4th annual Kids Camp. The camp gives children the opportunity to learn about Jesus through games, songs, and other activities. Children ages 6 through 14 can attend. The children's parents are given the opportunity to hear the gospel message as well. This year, 115 children and parents attended the event. 27 children decided to follow Jesus. And you can find out more about CBN World Reach by logging on to cbn.com/worldreach.